If you're watching this video, you've probably heard of Christopher Ward, a British watchmaking company who have grown immensely in the last few years. They've grown so drastically that most people don't even consider them a micro brand anymore. In fact, I am one of those people. Personally, I think what they're doing is rather impressive from an innovation standpoint, but also a marketing standpoint. Despite their growth, they continue to run their bespoke process, which is where anyone can get in contact with Christopher Ward and they can take one of their existing models and design their own version of it. Although that is really dumbing it down, and there are quite a few things to consider, which I'm going to be going through in this video. Last year, I got in contact with Christopher Ward's Bespoke team because I had a vision, and now I have a really cool watch. I know from speaking to people in a lot of the Christopher Ward Facebook groups that there are quite a few people considering starting a bespoke project, I guess, and the website that they have and the web page that they have for it is very limited in its information. It doesn't give a whole lot away. So in this video, I'm essentially going to go through my own experience of going through the bespoke process, and yeah, then I think there's going to be some questions at the end that people wanted me to answer. So I'll cover those as well. But yeah, so this is my experience essentially. Now I will start by saying that I have absolutely no affiliation with Christopher Ward whatsoever. I mean, when I started it, I was simply a customer with an idea, and I believe that there are quite a few people in the same boat, and they're a bit hesitant to get in contact, and they don't really know where to start. So hopefully this video is helpful for you. Now, it's quite unlikely that my experience will be identical to yours. Certainly the timelines will likely be different. I think from what I've seen in the groups that they're a lot busier with the bespoke projects now than when I started. So take these timelines with a pinch of salt, but hopefully this will give you a general idea of what the process contains, what goes on, how long roughly everything happens, and yeah, whether it's worth your time or not. So I first made contact with Christopher Ward on the 7th of December 2023, and I'd seen a couple of projects that were going on in the Facebook groups prior to emailing, so I thought, hey, I'll have a look into that and see what it's all about. Now, I love the idea of designing my own watch. I thought that was really cool. So I went to their website, and from what it looked like you had to be part of like a big group or a big organization of loads of people that would come together to design a watch, and then everyone would buy one, sort of thing. That was how I envisioned it. So I thought I'd try my luck. I emailed the general bespoke address. And I received a really quick response. I think it was about half an hour I had to wait from Peter, the bespoke manager, who essentially told me that it didn't have to be a big group. I mean, anyone could do it, and that as long as you got the minimum order quantity of 25, then yeah, your design could turn into a real watch. So Peter France, the bespoke manager, got back to me really quickly. And he explained that to me, and he said that he asked if I wanted to set up a Teams call to sort of go through the processes with him, and some of the ideas that I had, which obviously, I mean, I jumped at the chance. I think I was on a holiday at the time, so yeah, I set it up for a few days later, and I can't remember all of the specifics of what he said. But I will go through the bits that I definitely remember and the key points that sort of came across. So the design phase, the consultation bit, all completely free of charge. No money's exchanged there at that point whatsoever. Your design has to stem from one of Christopher Ward's existing models, and the actual amount that model costs doesn't matter. I mean, it can be a £500 watch, or it could even be their 3-4 grand Belcanto. It doesn't matter, as long as you get those 25 people to buy it, to commit to buying it, you're good. So the way it worked is either I could provide my own design ideas in terms of I could Photoshop my own watches and do it that way and send those in, or what I opted for, because my Photoshop skills are not ideal. I essentially explained what I wanted in words, and then Peter took that to their design team, where they would put together some renders and then send me. And I think the turnaround for the most part for that was about a week. So I would email in, say what I wanted, and they'd get back to me roughly around a week, maybe sometimes two, with some renders. So my sort of job in the process, from what Peter explained to me on that first meeting that we had, was that I would essentially be responsible for collecting those buyers. So although the consultation part and the design phase was completely free of charge for me, it was my job to actually secure those buyers and collect their information so that Christopher Ward could then later email them and get, well, essentially give them a way to pre-order the watch. Peter also told me that once they sort of had all of that information, so I ended up doing it on a spreadsheet. So once they had all that information, they would create a passworded web page on the Christopher Ward website where those potential buyers would be sent the link with the password, and then they could just buy, or well, pre-order the watch as they would any other Christopher Ward watch. So yeah, there's no real special way of buying. They simply go on, click pre-order, and they can, I think you can use the any type of like structured payments, so like the PayPal Pay in 3 thing or Klarna, however they normally do it. You could also use, if you were purchasing a bespoke watch. Now, of course, as exciting as this news was that I could actually do it, 25 people, well, getting 25 people to buy a £1,000 watch that I've designed, well, I mean, it sounds a tough ask even now. At the time, I didn't know if it was possible, but I thought, hey, why not? I'll give it my best go and we'll see where it goes. And one thing that Peter said that really did stick with me throughout the whole sort of design process was that he said, design is everything. And that rung absolutely true throughout the entire process, really, because it doesn't matter whether you've got 1,000 people backing you or nobody. If the design is good, people will buy it, and that's what ended up happening. So I went to the drawing board, and the next day I messaged Peter with my design ideas, and the base model that I chose was the C63 Sealander GMT for no other reason than I just liked the look of it and I wanted that to be the base for my project. So my actual requests to the design change were they weren't drastic at all. It was essentially the dial color, the GMT hand, a couple of other color bits, and yeah, I mean the main thing of course was the color scheme, because that's what I had in mind really. And my original idea was like a fire and ice type thing. So I wanted like a red or an orange dial with a blue. Well, I originally wanted quite a light blue GMT hand, but again, the design is everything, and gradually throughout the process, I realised that that was quite a sort of polarizing design, shall we say, and I ended up changing that. And to be honest, quite glad I changed it, because now that I look back, the Fire and Ice name, I don't know how well that would have worked. So after the call, it was, I think, a couple of weeks later. I mean, it was over the Christmas period, so I would expect it to be slightly longer. So at the start of January, Peter sent me the first designs, and they were a good start. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but then I suppose what do you expect when I'm just saying what I'm after rather than actually showing? So I went back to Peter with some tweaks, and about 2 weeks later, he sent me this. Now, I was actually quite happy with these renders, especially how quick it had been into the process. I mean, we weren't far along at all. And I thought that the best way to actually gain traction for this project was to make use of those Facebook groups that I'd seen these projects in initially. So I checked with Peter that it was okay to share the renders, and he said, yep, absolutely fine. And I mean, thank you to the admins of the groups as well that allow this, because, I mean, without using those groups, I would have had no chance at all of getting this project off the ground. So I wouldn't have known where else to turn. I mean, those groups were, especially the Christopher Ward enthusiast group, was vital. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do the project. Wouldn't have happened without that group. So again, thank you for the admins for allowing that to happen. So from my first post in the group about this project, I actually got some really, really useful feedback, and it prompted me as well to ask about the possibility of a matching date wheel, because I know that that was something that it would probably be a deal breaker for quite a lot of people. And I was told that, yeah, if we hit 50 orders, then the date wheel was possible. And at the time I thought, hang on a minute, I haven't even got 25. Let's focus on that. But the longer it went on, the more I realised, hang on a sec, this actually might be possible. So after giving my feedback on the second set of designs, about a week later I got the third set through, and I honestly thought that these were absolutely perfect. I thought, these are the ones, everyone's going to love these, fine. So I made another post in the group, and there were some common denominators, shall we say. So the main comment was about the blue that was used for the GMT hand and sort of around the indices, and people were saying it was too dark. I mean, I really liked it. People were saying that it almost looked purple. And obviously, the whole goal is to attract as many buyers as possible. It's not necessarily just down to what I want. And that was something I quickly learned, that if I was doing it my way, we wouldn't have the 25 buyers that we needed. So at times, yeah, I had to compromise on the design. And in the end, it paid off. Another thing that was changed was somebody in the group actually came up with the name of Sunset. And I wanted originally to have it on the dial. But again, that seemed to be a bit of a turn off for quite a lot of people. So that's something we changed. So I went back to Peter with the final bits of feedback, and he came back with these designs, and these were perfect. It was ready to go. The pre-orders were ready to begin. So I posted this in the group, and I checked with Peter before I sent it, that just to make sure that it was all good and it was all right. And if anybody's going through the same thing, I would definitely recommend you do the same, just because you don't want to make any mistakes, especially when it comes to collecting people's details. So yeah, I asked people to send me their name, intent to buy, and their email address. And from then, I started a spreadsheet where I would collect those details and later send them on to Peter. Now, within just 2 days of this post, I had 37 people wanting to buy the watch, and I was absolutely blown away by the amount of messages I got. And I guess I was starting to believe that this was actually going to happen. And what I did differently to most, that I've not seen anybody else or heard of anybody else do, but I actually think it was the key factor in generating as much interest as I did. I actually started a Facebook Messenger group to add all of the potential buyers to, so that they could discuss the project, so that I could easily share updates with them. And it seemed to just keep everybody really quite excited and hyped for it. And so yeah, I think that was one of the key factors in why this project in particular was so successful. So after about a week of collecting details from potential buyers, the webpage that Christopher Ward had created was ready to launch, and this is where people could actually transfer the money and pre-order the watch itself. And when I sent the spreadsheet through, we had a massive 62 people that wanted to buy this watch. And obviously I had capped it at 50 for no reason other than it was a nice round number, and obviously we needed 50 to get the colour match date wheel. So there ended up being a wait list of 12 people, which when starting I couldn't have even imagined. I was told as well that usually from people that say they're going to buy, around 20% of those normally drop out. So I thought 62 was almost a perfect number, essentially, that we would fill those 50 spots and nobody that definitely wanted to buy the watch would miss out. So on the 8th of February 2024, the first 50 people on the spreadsheet were sent this email. As you can see in the email, the official pre-order phase would last about 2 weeks. And by the end of those 2 weeks, 48 out of the 50 watches had sold, which again, I know I keep saying it, but it was beyond belief. I couldn't believe it. And I think about 30 of those came within a day of the email, which Peter told me was completely unheard of. And yeah, I really put it down to that group. And I know that the people in that group, the buyers, were really patiently waiting for that email to come through. And they were ready, hot on it, as soon as that pre-order email came through, which I think is part of, well, one of the main reasons as to why, yeah, people just hammered that pre-order button. Now, I'm not 100% sure what happened in terms of the people that didn't buy the watch, but I think Peter would send out sort of a few more emails to people on the waiting list as the days went on, and well, to try and get them all sold essentially. And thankfully I didn't have anybody come to me to say that, oh, I was one of the first 50 and I missed out or anything like that. So yeah, in my opinion, everything to do with the pre-orders went quite smoothly. Now, we were originally given the date of the 31st of October 2024 as the hopeful delivery date, but we were told that that was dependent on suppliers and a few other factors, and that this was just a rough guide. So in the months following, I did pester Peter a fair bit. I mean, I tried not to pester too much, but you know, sometimes the waiting game gets a little bit too tough. So yeah, he didn't really have any updates for me whenever I asked, and then randomly at the start of September, we got this email. So this email basically confirmed that we'd received the watches at the start of November, essentially. So their date that they gave us, the rough guide, turned out to be pretty accurate, which from speaking to other people and hearing about other projects, I don't think that that's always the case. I know that there's a lot that have been delayed significantly more. So again, if you're given a date like that, I would definitely take it with a pinch of salt. Obviously be hopeful for that date, but don't sort of rely on that date as this is when it's happening. Then on the 6th of November, my watch finally arrived, and I was absolutely stunned by how beautiful it was. It turned out a lot better than I could imagine. I mean, you can only tell so much from the renders, but to see it in the flesh is something completely different. And I was really quite proud of it. And seeing everybody post their photos in the group when theirs arrived was just, it felt like I had really accomplished something. And yeah, I was absolutely over the moon with how it turned out. So in terms of a timeline then, it took about 2 months to go from when I first made contact to the pre-order webpage being built and put up, and then obviously a further 9 months for the watches to actually be delivered. So 11 months all in, it's a long time. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to argue that it is a very long time. And this process isn't for everyone. And I will quite happily admit there were times where I wasn't even sure that it was worth it. And yeah, it was a real challenge waiting and trying not to pester and ask for updates, because I know that that is annoying, and I don't want to be annoying as much as possible. And I think as well, setting that group up was as great as it was. I then sort of became the first point of contact for those buyers and the sort of go-between for them and Christopher Ward. So obviously I had to deal with a lot of questions, which again, I was glad to answer. Glad to try and help where I could. But obviously, you know, that part is challenging in itself. Now, to be completely transparent, and I have no idea whether this is the case for everyone or if it was me, but yeah, I actually received my watch completely free of charge. And at the time, I was kind of, obviously I'm well aware that I was lucky, but now I look back on it, I think it's almost fair compensation in terms of I've helped generate £50,000 worth plus of revenue. So to get a free watch out of it, I mean, it was a massive bonus for me when I found that out, because I was, again, willing to buy this watch myself. So to receive it free was, again, incredible. And it gives it even more of a backstory. So for those actually interested in the watch itself, there it is in all its glory. I'll try and get it in the light as best I can. Hopefully it will focus. There it is. So yeah, that is the C63 Sealander GMT Sunset Edition, which, yeah, again, every time I look at it now, I'm just absolutely over the moon with it. I absolutely love the thing, and I'm very proud of what I accomplished, along with everybody else who put their input in. Now, when I mentioned in the Christopher Ward groups that I was going to make this video, there were actually a few people that asked some questions. So, and I may have already covered most of these in my sort of in the telling of my own experience, but I'll go through and answer them quickly anyway, just in case. So yeah, the minimum of 25 orders is based on the people that actually pre-order the watch. So you could have 1,000 people that sign up and declare their interest, but until 25 of those people actually turn that interest into pre-ordering the watch, the project won't go ahead. So yeah, you need those 25 people to buy the watch, otherwise the project will be unsuccessful. I am aware as well that you can, if you sort of have an unsuccessful run the first time round, I believe you can go back to the drawing board, you know, make a few edits and then try again. But yeah, thankfully I didn't have to do that, and it worked first time. So yeah, the consultation, design phase, all of that completely free, and the only time that money changes hands is when you go on to pre-order the watch, and when all the buyers go on to pre-order the watch. That's the only time money is exchanged. So you don't have to handle any money. Christopher Ward do all of that. You just collect people's details, pass it on, and that is your job in terms of collecting the buyers done, essentially. Now, I should note as well that for my Sunset watch particularly, because there weren't crazy design changes, the price that people paid for the Sunset was the same that they would pay for the standard model, which obviously varies depending on bracelet, strap option, etc., or what currency you're using. But yeah, it was exactly the same as the base model. That said, I will say that I believe if you make drastic design changes, I'm not sure what would be classed as that, but if it essentially increases the cost significantly, I would probably expect that the price would then be increased and your buyers would have to pay a slight premium. But then you'd be told that if you go through the process, you will be told that sort of thing. So you could obviously translate that to your potential buyers, so that'll be well clear, and you'll know that. Now, in terms of the design elements and what can and can't be changed, now again, I can't speak for other projects, but I think it's mainly just the dial elements that can be changed. So anything to do with the color of the dial, or the indices or the text, any of that can be changed. I believe certain things to do with the indices can be changed, and obviously the dial design, like I know people have done sort of brush dial 12s, etc. I'm not sure about the handset. You'd have to check with Christopher Ward about that. But in terms of a case or a bracelet, I don't think there's any scope for them to change those based on your design elements. Now, obviously, I could be wrong. If you went to them and said, look, I've got 1,000 buyers here, could you do this? then maybe they'd consider it. But as a sort of normal everyday person that wants to design a watch, yeah, case and bracelet are out of the question. You have to choose one of their existing models and edit that design essentially. Now, in terms of how I feel about the Bespoke process and sort of the year that I spent in it, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, even though it was challenging at times waiting for new renders or updates, overall I would say it was a very fun thing to do. Very exciting. It was really good. Although waiting for the updates was tough, when I got an update, it was obviously, as you'd expect, very satisfying, because they were obviously few and far between. I'd get an update maybe once a week. So yeah, when that came through, it was really exciting, and yeah, I would recommend it to anyone. Now, it's absolutely not for everyone, and I get that. If you can't be bothered to go through it, then absolutely by all means don't. I'm glad I did, because now I have a really cool watch with an even cooler backstory. And obviously I guess I got lucky with the design and that people like the design. But like I said earlier in the video, it is all about the design. I mean, you can have 1,000 people that want to buy your watch or plan to buy your watch, and if they don't like the design, they're simply not going to buy it. So it is all about the design, and I think taking people's feedback was very important, and not being selfish and not being, I suppose, being willing to compromise is another thing that will help you to be successful. And I think that was the key for me, is certainly not pandering to what everybody else wants instead of what I want, but yeah, that sort of middle ground where stuff that I can live with, if it would help increase the amount of buyers, then I was absolutely all for it. And I would say as well that I was actually able to be more patient than I would if I was paying for the service, in the sense that because I wasn't paying, it almost felt like they were doing me a favour. And so as much as I pestered for updates, I did try to keep it to a level that wasn't too annoying. But yeah, you just have to be patient with it. That's all I would say on that front. Now, in terms of where the Bespoke process is now, and sort of what the status is on it. The last time I heard from Peter, he told me that there was actually a pause on Bespoke projects. So I think there are some in the pipeline now that I guess they will continue, but any new projects, I think you might have to wait for them to, I guess, give an update. But that said, get in touch and you might get a different answer, because I know you can obviously go to their website, which I will obviously link in the description. You can go to their website, fill in a little form with your email, or you can actually email them directly, I'm pretty sure. And that's what I did. So yeah, go and find out. Now, the last time I spoke to Peter, he actually said that there were a few sunsets, this thing, left over. So yeah, if anybody wants one or is interested in buying one, please do get in contact. Either leave a comment or email me. I'll leave my email in the description, and I will put you in touch with Peter, who will help you to purchase one. As for this video, I did actually, a couple of weeks ago when I was sort of preparing it, I did reach out to Peter and I did ask whether there was anything that he wanted me to include or anything that he wanted me to stay away from. I didn't get a response, so I've just sort of gone with it, and I've tried to be as honest as possible, completely transparent. Yeah, and any other questions that I haven't answered, I've tried to answer everything as best I can. But if there's anything that I haven't covered that you still want to find out, please do feel free to leave a comment, and yeah, I'll get back to any comments about the Bespoke process at Christopher Ward. This video has taken quite a long time to put together, from remembering everything that happened, and yeah, putting it together. It's taken ages, so I really would appreciate if you would like and subscribe, and yeah, like I say, any questions you've got, I'll try my best to answer them, but hopefully this video has reached a fair few people that were interested in the Bespoke process, and hopefully it's helped answer most of your questions. But yeah, I really appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.